Well, hey friends, and welcome to my homestead kitchen. Today we are going to be doing some meal prep and freezer meals in preparation for me having surgery next week. I want to be able to have a lot of things on hand for myself as well as my family to be able to easily cook and eat. This is going to be over the course of several days because I just find it too overwhelming to try to cram it all in one day. Besides, I ordered some freezer meal containers from Amazon and they haven't gotten here yet, so hopefully they'll be here soon. So I'm going to be prepping as much as I can today and over the course of the next several days, but I'm going to take you along with me so you guys can see. The first thing I'm going to be doing is making some bone broth. Now, bone broth is so nutrient dense and gut healing and just so soothing, especially if you're sick or you have surgery or something like that, or even if you just want to bump up your nutrition. So we're going to be starting with some bone broth. I'm going to be making several batches of it. I'm doing chicken and I'm going to be doing some beef broth. I've got some extra veggies, some carrots, some garlic, some onions that I'm going to add. I always like to add a little splash of vinegar in there and top off my Instant Pot. And I don't have a lot of chicken bones, so I'm just going to be making a small batch of it. Bone broth here is going to be so soothing and healing for me. It's probably all I'm going to be eating for a while. So I want to make sure that I have a lot of that on hand so I can just really nourish myself and get that rest and relaxation that I need as my body heals. So while my bone broth cooks, I'm going to go ahead and move on to making some turkey breakfast sausage. I have this organic ground turkey that I like to get from Costco in a 3-pound package. I like to make turkey sausage in bulk. And then freeze it, cook it and freeze it, just because it lasts quite a while. I'm gonna mix up my seasoning in this little container here and it'll be easier to incorporate it all in there. So for every pound of meat, I do 1 teaspoon of ground sage. I get this in bulk from Azure Standard. So since this is 3 pounds, that would be the same as 1 tablespoon, but I'm just using my teaspoon measure. Now, depending on how salty you like this, you can do 1 teaspoon per pound. I like to do about 3/4 of a teaspoon a pound or a little bit less, just because I feel like it's really salty. But if you are trying to watch your sodium, you could definitely do less. I'm gonna do, I think it's 1/4 teaspoon of pepper per pound, so I'm gonna do like 3/4 of a teaspoon. Now my original recipe calls for sugar in here, but I don't do any sugar. It also calls for some red pepper flakes, but my 5-year-old does not like anything spicy. And then for this amount here, I like to add some onion powder, so I'm just gonna add 1 teaspoon for all of this. And you can adjust this to your liking, add any other seasonings. So I'm just gonna give that a quick stir. The other change that I have made to this recipe over the years is adding an egg. I'm not a huge egg fan, but I feel like this adds a little bit of nutrition in here. You can add how many ever eggs you'd like. The more eggs you add, the more it changes the texture. So I just like to do 1 egg because we have an abundance of eggs. Now when I mix this up, I like to just put a little bit on top, and I don't like to use my hands. So I just use 2 forks and I'm just going to mix this all together really well. And then mix it up a little bit, add a little bit more seasoning, mix it up again. That way you don't get like a clump of seasoning in one spot. I've got my large cast iron skillet here that I'm gonna start preheating. I'm going to season it with just a little bit of avocado oil spray. I also have this griddle. I used it last night, so it already has a lot of oil on it already. So we're gonna let those get preheated. Now, I used to be all extra and get out my scale and weigh each one. And I used to have my patty press that I would make them into nice flat circles and make them all perfect. But I don't have time for that. And don't have to make them look pretty. So I just use my 2 forks and I just scoop some. And yeah, some turn out a little bit bigger than others and some are a little smaller than others, which is perfect because then when I go to eat one in the morning, I can decide if I want a big one or a small one. The key is to get them thin so that way they can cook all the way through. I also used to just freeze them on some wax paper and stick them on a cookie sheet and freeze them raw, and then I would pull them out to cook them. But the problem with that is they would come out of the freezer and then I have to make sure they are thoroughly cooked through before I eat them. So this way I can cook them completely and then freeze them, and when I'm ready to eat, I can pull it out of the freezer. I warm it up in my toaster oven for just a few minutes and they taste absolutely delicious. I don't have to worry about cooking them All I do is just thaw them and heat them up, and they're already ready to go. While my sausages are cooking, I'm going to be making some bread. I have this Wonder Mill here and a Bosch machine, and I've been making freshly ground wheat bread, whole wheat bread for the last 14 years. We used our wedding money to buy these, and this is still going strong. So I buy my wheat berries in bulk from Azure. This is just a hard white wheat, and I love spelt, but I'm out of spelt, so I usually alternate between those two. One of my goals for 2023 was to make 100% of our bread and not buy any from the store. I did buy it once during a camping trip with family because there was no way I can bring that much bread in our RV while we were camping. But other than that, we have been only eating homemade bread, and it saved so much money, and that's why I want to make a ton to have on hand so that way we don't have to go to the store to buy bread because I won't be able to make it while I'm recovering. For my dough not to stick to my baking dishes, I like to cut up some parchment paper. I use a clean hand and spread some coconut oil on the small ends of my bread pans, and then I just line the rest with parchment paper, and it makes it so much easier to get out. I don't like to use non-stick cooking spray because of the ingredients in it, so this method has been working for me. Rolling this out, I realized that I forgot the salt. So I'm just sprinkling a little bit of salt in here. The whole dough batch should have half a tablespoon of salt. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I am just kneading the salt in because normally I add the salt last and I knead it in the last bit of time. So I'm hoping this will work, and my counter here is super sticky, so we're gonna just hope that this works. So hopefully I didn't ruin my dough. We'll find out. I mean, it'll make okay toast, but I've forgotten salt before and it doesn't taste very good, so I'm glad I remembered. I'm just gonna cover this with a damp towel just to keep it from drying out, and we're gonna let this rise for a little bit, and we're gonna move on to our next project. My sausage has cooled, so I'm just gonna put it in this container and stick it in the freezer. You wanna make sure they're cooled completely because then they'll just kind of freeze and get stuck together if they're still warm. So we did eat a few of them for snack. They are so good, but I'm gonna throw them in the freezer so we can eat them for breakfast. I've pulled my sourdough starter out of the refrigerator. It normally stays in the refrigerator and I bake a couple times a week. I don't do discard. I don't have tons of starter on hand. I'm gonna revive this because in the next couple days I'm gonna be making bagels, English muffins, sourdough bread, all that kind of stuff to throw in the freezer. And so I want to revive this. Normally I don't have this much on hand, but I do this time. So I'm just gonna weigh and see how much I have in here because I like to feed it a 1-to-1 ratio for how much starter I have. So I've got a really thick starter, almost dough-like, and it is 100% whole wheat. I've never fed it any white flour. As soon as my loaves come out of the oven, when they're still nice and hot, I like to brush the tops with some butter. This is the Kirkland grass-fed butter that is similar to Kerrygold. I love this butter so much. It just makes the top of the loaves really shiny and soft and gives them some extra flavor. I just want to show you my sourdough starter here. It's been a few hours. Look how bubbly and beautiful that is. It revives beautifully out of the refrigerator. So this has been done for about 39 minutes and it's getting late, so I'm going to open it up and strain it so I can cool it and chill it overnight. It smells so good. I got about 8 cups or 2 quarts of broth, and there is a layer of the grease on top, so I like to stick it in the refrigerator and let that solidify. So I'm gonna let this cool for just a little bit, stick it in the fridge, and I'll show you what it looks like tomorrow night. But it's that beautiful rich color because I put turmeric in there, and turmeric will actually stain my countertops, so that's why I like to drain it in the sink. But turmeric has some great anti-inflammatory abilities, so that's why I wanted to add it to this stock. I'm gonna let this cool so I can pop it in the refrigerator. I don't like to put hot stuff in the refrigerator because, you know, it brings down the temperature in the refrigerator and then I have to work harder to get it back to temperature. So that is it, end of day 1 today. I'm gonna pick back up here tomorrow and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with this and make some more stuff. It is day number 2 and I got my deli freezer containers from Amazon. This is a huge pack of them. I can't remember how many are in there, but there's different sizes. So I'm gonna wash these up. And last night for dinner, we had some taco soup and I made like a triple batch. And that's one way to get freezer meals in your freezer is just to make a bigger batch and then freeze the rest. So I'm gonna divide this up into these bigger containers for the freezer. And we don't want to fill it all the way to the top because we want to leave space for it to expand in the freezer. Normally I don't like to use any plastic, but since we're talking about the freezer here and nothing hot, I am okay with using plastic in this one application. So now I just need to make sure that I label these, and there was a little bit left over in there. We'll just eat that for lunch today for leftovers. But I'm pretty impressed with these containers and I think they're going to work out great. So this is the bone broth from last night. I have some more going in the Instant Pot this morning. And as you can see, it's pretty watery. It's not super gelled. The fat has solidified on the top. I'm gonna leave some of it because your body needs fat to absorb the nutrients in the bone broth. Now, if your broth comes out more liquidy like this, rather than gelled, this is definitely not gelled. This is very liquidy. It's because you have too much water for the ratio of bone. So this is rich in collagen. This does have a lot of nutrients. However, I used more water than I should have, and that's okay. I'm gonna turn this into some chicken, not chicken noodle soup, but just some chicken soup. And I've got some more beef broth going in the Instant Pot, and that will definitely gel because I've got a lot of bones in there. And so I'll go ahead and show you that when that's all done. But this is still delicious and nutritious. I'm just gonna go ahead and make it into a soup. So while my chicken soup is cooling off, I'm gonna get started on some lasagna pasta type meals. So I've got some ground beef here, it's slightly frozen, and I've got onions and peppers, and we're just gonna cook up this meat. This is my new spatula that I just got. It's stainless steel with a walnut handle. This is from Amazon and it's made in USA. A lot of them are made in China, but this is the one that I found that was made in USA and I love it so much. I made some sourdough sandwich bread. It's half wheat, half white, and a little bit of spelt mixed in there. I didn't film the process because you don't need to see me make another loaf, but I'll link this recipe down below, and these are gonna go straight into the freezer. This is the bread we made yesterday. We already ate a whole loaf plus some, so I need to probably make some more, but I'm gonna put those in the freezer. So my pasta's done and I've already drained it. I've got some home canned spaghetti sauce here that I'm just going to add right to my pan. I'm also going to add in my meat mixture. I probably should add a little bit more sauce, but I did not can as much sauce as I had hoped to. So we're just trying to make this kind of stretch out. Okay, now we're gonna give it a good mix before we put it into containers. I thought I was recording, but don't laugh here. I filled this up. This is just a pie pan. I cannot find my 9x9 dish. And tonight, the babysitter's coming to watch kids so we can have a date night. So that's gonna be for the kids tonight. And then I have this foil dish here. I don't like to use aluminum, but freezer meals, it's just a little bit nicer to not have to freeze glass. So we're gonna just pile this in here, and this is what we kind of know as lasagna. I don't go through all the work of doing the lasagna noodles. Normally I do it in layers. Okay, I've got my mozzarella cheese, and I'm just gonna top it on the top. And then this one is gonna go straight into the freezer. Well, once it cools, because I don't wanna heat up the freezer. This one I'm just covering with foil so I can pop it in the oven right before we leave for our date tonight. And since this one's going in the freezer, I don't like plastic wrap, I don't like aluminum foil, but I haven't really found a great solution for that. So I'm gonna cover the top with foil. Then I'm going to wrap it with plastic wrap, if I can find the end here. The reason why I'm wrapping it so many times with foil and plastic wrap is because I don't want it to get freezer burned. I want to make sure I protect it really good as it's sitting in the freezer. I'm going to label it and make sure that I write my instructions on there. Is that how you spell lasagna? I don't know. How long to cook it, and also to be sure to remove the plastic wrap before baking. Here is the beef bone broth that's been sitting in the fridge overnight. And if you're wondering why it's like a neon color, it's because I put turmeric in it. So we're gonna take off this layer of fat on the top, and it breaks off pretty easy. That is a sign of a really good gelatin-rich, collagen-rich bone broth. If your bone broth does not do this, it's because you have too much water and not enough bones. Just look at that jiggle. Isn't that so amazing? All right, let's get this packaged up. I'm just gonna put, it's pretty gelled, so you can warm it up slightly before you put it in your containers. But I'm gonna do about a little bit more than a cup. These are the 16-ounce containers, so it can hold more. But I'm just gonna do about a cup in each one. Some of them will have a little bit more, but that's okay. I have a little bit of it still stuck to the bottom of the pan, and because this is such a rich bone broth, I'm gonna add just a little bit of water, swish this around, and I'm gonna just dump it in each of these. It'll dilute it just a tiny bit, but like this is so collagen rich and jiggly. I had so many bones in there, I probably could have used more water. So we're gonna just go ahead and divvy that up. Now this does not have salt in it, and I've heard that if your bone broth doesn't taste good or tastes like dirt, it's because you need salt. I love adding that pink salt with all those minerals in there because it just makes it that much better. So make sure you add salt to your bone broth just to get it to taste really good. This is the chicken soup that I made with the chicken bone broth from yesterday. It has cooled, and now I'm going to divide it up in 16-ounce containers and get that labeled so I can move it down to the freezer. Well, there you have it, guys. We made a ton of broth and soup and bread and some other things in the freezer. I still want to put a lot more in the freezer,
over the next week, but this video is gonna be way too long. So I hope you guys enjoyed this journey and was motivated to get some stuff in the freezer. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.